Like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. It's free, and they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hi, and welcome to the Vocal Fries Podcast, the podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Carrie Gillen.
And I'm Megan Figueroa. And I'm still a little bit sick. So if I squeak, forgive me. I think I'm at the squeaking stage right now.
The squeaking stage is, I mean, you feel mostly better, but
Yeah.
it just, you sound so bad, and you kind of like hate how you sound, you know?
I know. I liked it better a few days ago when it was just really deep and I felt like Tina from Bob's Burgers. Because I whine like she does, but it was really, really on point when I had a little bit of a deeper voice a couple days ago.
Yeah, I enjoy when my voice is a little lower. It feels sexier. I know it's not, but that's how it feels to me.
It's not because you...
Because you're phlegmy and gross, but
I was going to say, there's mucus involved. We forgot to thank some patrons last time.
Yes, we sure did. And that's on me.
Like some assholes.
Yes, so we definitely want to thank our two newest patrons from last month, Daryl Ducharme and Mary Tatey. And thank you so much for telling me how to pronounce your name, because I definitely would have fucked it up.
Yeah, and we don't want to fuck up names. I mean, that's a really important thing to us, as it should be to everyone.
Yes.
You know, a name is very important to people. They've done studies on this, or they are doing more, like, looking into this and how important it is. Yeah.
That's cool.
How important it is to get folks' name right. And I don't really think it's, like, linguistic research. It's more, like, socio-emotional learning, like, in education and stuff. But, like, it's important that teachers get kids' names right.
And especially if the sounds are actually in your language, like all of those were.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a little bit harder when they're not. But, you know, at least as close as you can, and especially if it is in your lexicon, or sorry, in your set of sounds, which Tatey is. So anyway, so thank you.
Yes. So today I'm the guest.
Yes.
On our show.
We're gonna pretend that you're the guest.
I'm excited to talk with you today, Carrie.
Welcome to my podcast.
Before that, I saw something on Twitter, and it actually kind of transition. It'll transition into what we're talking about today. But I saw a tweet about how everyone's being sexist and misogynistic toward Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this is from a tweet. Is this a tweet? No. Okay, so I don't know if this is a tweet, but it says that in the tweet it says Candace Owens of Turning Point USA said about Ocasio-Cortez, quote, "Similar to Christine Blasey Ford, Ocasio-Cortez constantly infantilizes her voice to sound like a toddler so that journalists don't critique her dangerous ideas. This is creepy. She is a 30-year-old adult woman trying to pass as a naive, threatened little girl."
It's interesting because I never noticed anything particularly notable about her voice.
Right.
She does not sound like she has a particularly high voice. It's not particularly low either, but it's definitely within the normal range for a woman's voice.
Right.
And it's also interesting because we were just interviewed by Get Your Wit.
Yeah, and WIT is women in tech.
We were interviewed about Elizabeth Holmes's voice, and she is the opposite. Like, she really sounds
and
very
she's the
deep.
The CEO and founder of Theranos, the thing that you should Google if you have not heard about it. It's a wild ride. Wild ride.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's interesting that she's being picked on for something that
there are women who have particularly high voices, and you still shouldn't make fun of them for them, obviously.
Right.
But
Right.
she's just lying.
Yeah. Yeah, she's lying. I mean, we also, I mean, we're not out looking for reasons to disparage or undermine women, like obviously Candace Owens of Turning Point USA is. But yeah, it's like a outright lie that Alexandria is doing this.
Yep.
And it's sexist as fuck.
It just goes to show women do it too, which we've talked about before, but
Yes. No, we are definitely flag bearers of the patriarchy too.
yeah. Well, it would collapse instantly if all women gave it up.
It's true. That was just something that stood out to me recently as like really terrible. And stop picking on women's voices. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? I mean, that's what we've been saying since day one.
I know. But of course she's like not going to listen to us even if she heard this, which she won't, because she doesn't even care. Like she's completely disingenuous on many fronts.
Yes. She doesn't care. If she started one of our podcasts, she'd like automatically stop listening to it because of my vocal fry, probably.
Well, I don't know about that, but definitely the content. She would just be like, "Oh, they're liberal
snowflakes."
Yeah. Those liberal snowflakes.
Anyway, so I think it's been shown that on the show before that I am like the queen of terrible transitions. But today we're going to talk about child language development. But we're doing this because when was it? Someone asked us.
So one of my friends, Dave Tompkins, also known as Dancing Dave, he said that he'd be interested to learn more about correcting children's language because he has I think he has 2 children now, but one child that's old enough to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other one's an infant.
But still putting in the work.
Yes. Still learning, but just not expressing it outwardly. Yeah. Anyway, so his daughter was making what adults would consider to be mistakes, and he was wondering, like, am I supposed to be telling her how to say this correctly? And the answer is no.
Right.
So can you explain to us why that is the case?
Yes, I can explain why that's the case. And that's, but first I want to point out, because you said that what adults will refer to as mistakes, and that's really important because I specifically state, like in my dissertation, that I won't call what children do errors, because they're just like pattern ways that kids go through language, and it's kind of unfair to call them mistakes or errors because they're actually very creative and very smart ways to solve a problem, and they're different problems that the kids are solving. Like,
do they have a different rule than the adults do?
Yes. Sometimes. And then when it comes to sounds, maybe it's just because of the motor issues, right?
That's true, yes. Actually, so maybe we should start with what kinds of errors there are.
Sure.
Because the kinds of errors he was talking about had more to do with, like, they were more grammatical errors.
Let's talk about sound first, because and also I just wanted to say too, really quick, that we're going to be talking about sound, but of course, there's another modality, which is sign, and deaf babies, actually, their acquisition parallels that of spoken language development, as long as deaf babies have full access to a sign language.
Right.
And I just want to say that I've heard and learned from the hard of hearing and deaf communities that it's language deprivation if you don't give deaf babies full access to a sign language.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I talk about all these things, deaf babies are doing this too. They're just doing it with their hands. So they're babbling, they're having their first words, they're doing it with their hands. So sound. There's some really cute stuff that kids do with sound, and we're able to talk about it in a way, and because there have been so many kids over the years that have done the exact same things. And it's not so important to like know what it's called, but these are phonological processes. And the first one that I'll talk about really briefly is fronting. So a kid might say cow instead of cow, and what they're doing is they're saying the k sound in cow is further back, and you make it further back in your mouth. And so they front it and say tau, ta, which is further front. So that's why they call it fronting. That's just why. But that's something a kid might do.
And that's because a T is easier to pronounce than a K?
Yes. Actually, I don't, that's something like a speech pathologist that, you might want to ask a speech pathologist. But that's what I've always assumed. And now that you asked me that, I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I do know that we acquire alveolar sounds, what are called alveolar sounds, like T and D and N, first, before the velar sounds like K, G, and ing.
I'm assuming so because we also do like, you'll hear babbling like that sounds like mama, but it's really just babbling and it's not a child's first words yet. But a lot of moms will think that the child is actually saying mama, but they'll babble with this m sound because it's bilabial. We're using our lips and babies can see that being made. So it's one of the first sounds that they'll make. And that's why mama is like, we'll have a similar word across like so many world's languages is because it's one of the easier babbles to make. So yeah, I'm just guessing easier sounds kind of go from front to back.
Well, kind of. It's a little bit more complicated because like ch is much more complicated than k. But anyway.
Yeah. Also, I'm not a phonologist or phonetician. I just know that these things are patterned and they happen.
Yeah, there's definitely an order. Yeah.
Yeah, or someone who focuses on like motor development. But I know that definitely plays a role. And that's why you actually see deaf babies start babbling first because the motor development, like they develop, it's easier to sign than to do some of these things with your mouth.
That's a very good point.
So you might also hear a kid say wed for red.
And that's because that the North American English
fucking
R
hard.
is the hardest sound that we have in English by far.
Kids will be saying wed up until they're like 6, some of them. Mm-hmm. R is usually the last one to develop. And so another one is called consonant harmony, which means that you make 2 consonants in a word match. So dog becomes gog.
Mm-hmm. I love that one.
I know, it's cute. These 2 next ones are very, very, very popular with the kids. Very popular.
They're hot.
They're really hot. They're really hot. Final consonant deletion. So boat becomes bow. And then something like consonant cluster reduction, meaning when something has 2 consonants, they turn it into 1. So pretty becomes pity.
And these are all, or at least most of these, are because of the motor development. It's harder to have 2 consonants in a row than one. It's harder to say R than W, etc., etc. We should say that there are languages that have that don't have any consonant clusters. So, for example, Hawaiian only has consonant vowel, consonant vowel, consonant vowel. That's it. And so, yeah, English actually has quite complicated clusters, although not the most complicated.
Yeah, like the STR sound, strike or stroke or whatever. That beginning stra is pretty difficult for people that are learning English if they don't have
those that sequence of sounds, which many languages don't.
That's 3 consonants at the beginning. It's pretty hard.
Still not the most, but yes.
It's true. And another thing you might hear is that children might say things like nana for banana and raff for giraffe.
Truncation!
Yeah, well, they call it weak syllable dilution. Again, you don't need to know this. It's not going to help you raise your children. But all this is to lead me to the point of the FIS phenomenon. Okay, so this is why you shouldn't try to correct your kids as they go through these stages. And again, like there's caveats, of course, like there are going to be children that do need speech language pathology or pathologists to come in and intervene and stuff. But like imagining that this is like typical development, these are things that kids are going to go through and they're not scary. So the FIS phenomenon is there was a researcher and the researcher saw that the kid had an inflatable fish and the kid called the fish Fis. And so the researcher was like, oh, is that your Fis? And the child was like, no. And then he said, it's my Fis. And so the researcher again said Fis, and the child got angry, like, no, that is not what I'm saying. And so the researcher finally said, oh, it's your fish. And he said, yes, it's my Fis. So the kid
could perceive the differences.
Yes.
But couldn't pronounce them.
Exactly. So that the fist phenomenon is one good summary of why we shouldn't try to push kids by correcting things. Like, they know what's happening.
Yeah. So my cousin, who is a grown-ass woman now, but, you know, she's a lot younger than me. When she was growing up, at one point, her name is Jennifer, and at one point she couldn't say j or f, so she pronounced it Denneber.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called her Denneber,
Oh.
and she was like, "It's not Denneber, it's Denneber." So it's the exact same thing as the fist thing.
Yeah. So those are the sound one, reasons for why you shouldn't bother with your kids with sound, because they're just going through stages. Could be related to motor development. It might be just like a cute little quirk that they're going to go with for a while, but eventually they get the adult pronunciation. Okay, so when it comes to more like lexical items,
aka words.
Words. Oh my god. I'm using jargon.
It's okay. I mean, people should learn from us as well, but, you know, just want to give them both.
It's like all of a sudden, since I'm like being interviewed, I forgot to not use jargon. To kind of get us going with words, I'll tell you about the Gavagai problem. So imagine the Gavagai problem is this. So you're somewhere where you don't know the language, and you see a rabbit hop by, and someone who speaks this language that you don't know says Gavagai. Could the Gavagai be the whole rabbit? Could it be food source? Could it be only talking about the rabbit's ears? We don't know what Gavagai means, and this is the problem that children face all the time when they're trying to learn words, right?
Or it could be hopping or something.
Yeah, exactly. It could be hopping. It could be nuisance. There's a nuisance. I don't know. It could be anything. So kids are trying to solve this problem. So sometimes they're going to have underextension or overextension patterns. So an overextension would be when a child uses a word for a larger set of reference than adult usage. So they might say daddy to refer to all men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think I've actually one of my cousins did it. I feel like I've actually seen this in practice. That's a pretty typical one.
I don't know if I've seen that word, but it makes sense. But definitely I've seen like doggy refer to horse, things like that.
Yes, so that's another big one. Yeah, dog. That's at least one that's in the textbooks always, like dog to refer to horses. And actually, they might refer to like baby, a picture frame that has a picture of a baby. That might be baby too. So like the whole thing. So anytime you see a baby, something's baby. And again, this is such principled way of children going through language that it's in textbooks, right? These are patterns, not errors. It's very creative problem solving.
All right, so what's an example of an underextension?
Using a word for a smaller set of reference than adult usage. So when a child first uses the word dog, they'll only use it to refer to the family dog and not other dogs that they see.
And that might be really hard to even notice, because if they're not saying the wrong thing... Right. You might not notice that they're not using it as... that they're just using it basically like a proper name.
Yeah. And of course, this is not to say, like, for these over and under extensions, not to, like, play with your kids and point out the names of things. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that, like, again, there's principled reasons why kids might say what they're saying.
Yeah, and in this case, I think, like, it's okay to help them learn that they're under or overextending if you're noticing it. They might not accept your correction, but...
Right, so we'll get to that.
We will get to that because there are some examples. But I don't think pointing out, hey, look, this is also a dog, is going to do them any harm.
No. You will not harm your child by labeling objects for them.
And then, interestingly, this is not a thing that happens in all cultures, but we certainly do it in ours, and there's nothing wrong with doing it.
Yeah, so this is actually a good time to bring in the point that all children learn the language around them. Mm-hmm. And we are not to be judge and jury of other cultures, even within like the US, and that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And this actually goes back to our episode when we talked to Dr. Nelson Flores about the word gap. A lot of people, including myself, have a problem with the way that we talk about, or even calling something a word gap, because it assumes that the way that some people interact with their children is wrong.
Yeah.
And that's fucked up. Yes, listen to episode 25 if you haven't. It's a great one about the word gap. And it also gets more complicated if we talk about children learning 2 or more languages. And kids will learn both languages.
Yeah.
Our brains are being underused in America when we only teach kids one language. So
yeah, they just have a slight delay in production. That's all.
And kind of saw before, I mean, that doesn't mean they don't know things. So perception is way ahead of production.
Yeah. Anyone who's tried to learn a second language probably knows this already. Your comprehension is always way beyond your production.
Yeah.
Always. But it's especially true for children because they also have the motor issue if it's
exactly.
a speaking mode as opposed to signing mode.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so what else do we have besides? So we've talked about sounds, we've talked about words.
Talk about the grammar.
Let's talk about the grammar.
Yes, because our favorite subject. Well,
I love grammar, but
I spent my whole dissertation on.
Yeah, let's start with that.
I've been saying extension in this podcast, so I'll say extension. The overextension of the past tense ed in English. So many people for so long have been like, oh, kids say things like, I catched the ball, and I braked the toy, and what's that about? And so it's been said that that's when children learn the rule that you need to add the past tense ed to verbs to create the past tense. And it's very exciting, right? Because
you could just see the rule. It's so beautiful.
You see out there.
When someone makes a quote unquote mistake like that, you can see, oh, that's the rule.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And the thing with that though is there are a lot of dialects of English that actually use these in the dialect. So you'll have people saying braked or other overextended uses of ed. My mom has some, and I realized that that's maybe why I'm so comfortable with a lot of them. And I became more comfortable working on my dissertation with like catched and braked because I kept seeing them over and over again. I was like, oh, that sounds fine to me. Yeah. So, I mean, but braked sounds way better than catched because braked is actually a past tense where we have like to brake a car. I braked.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my dissertation was basically, we know perception precedes production. Maybe kids know how to do this before. And I found out that they do know how to do it before they're even saying any verbs out loud. Well, maybe they're saying go or eat or something.
Yeah, very simple.
I looked at 16-month-olds and they were happy with adding ed to verbs. So if you want to know more about that, you can message me. So we love overregularized verbs or overextended verbs like this because we see that kids have a rule. But some parents might try to say like, no, it's caught or whatever. I wanted to say an example of how it just doesn't matter if you try to fix the child's grammar, it's just kind of pointless. So this is a classic example from Brain 1971. So the child says, want other one spoon, daddy. Father says, you mean you want the other spoon? Child, yes, I want other one spoon, please, daddy. Father, can you say the other spoon? Child, other one spoon. Father, say other. Child, other. Father, spoon. Child, spoon. Father, other spoon. Child, other spoon. Now give me other one spoon.
Yeah, that was an example I would always bring up in my class.
Yeah, it's iconic. If you ever take a language development class, and they're going to show you that. And there's another one that's kind of cute. It's from McNeil, 1966. Child, nobody don't like me. Mother, no, say nobody likes me. Child, nobody don't like me. And then 8 repetitions of this follows. Mother, now listen carefully, say nobody likes me. Child, oh, nobody don't likes me.
Yeah. which is a beautiful example of them not figuring out what you're trying to correct.
Yeah, exactly. And both of those children are going to grow up and say it just like adults do.
Yeah.
So it was just pointless. It's cute. It's funny. But pointless.
It's very pointless. So yeah, there's no point in correcting your children when it comes to these things. Now, if they're saying mean things or bad words, definitely you can correct them for that. But like the innards of our language, the grammar, no. You're just wasting your time.
They'll get it. Don't worry about them.
They will definitely get it.
Yeah. So yeah, kids may talk funny, but they're going through stages of development that are patterned, and I don't know. I just think it's beautiful. It's very creative. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it kind of shows us the inner workings of our grammar, because you see stuff that's like, oh yeah, you're right. There is that rule. You're just over applying it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so fun. It's so fun. I mean,
you got to over apply it to then, I don't know. Like you're just figuring out what the rules are. You have a rule, but now you need to know what the, I don't know, specifications are.
Right. What the boundaries are. Like, does it apply to cross the board? Turns out no. Okay, so I have to learn, oh, there's this other kind of rule for the past tense, like what we call ablaut, which is just vowel change. For example, like buy bought. Although it's more complicated because there's a consonant in there too.
Yes. No. I mean,
seesaw.
It's so complicated. Yeah. See and saw. Oh, speaking of, it's really fun. I realized the other day. Okay, so the sit in the past tense is sat. I realized that my mom's past tense is set.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's very common in the South.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Her family is from the South, so yeah. Yeah. Again, might sound different to people that don't have that, but it is, the way that some dialects are. And I think that, I mean, the same lesson, I don't know, don't be an asshole message that we've been saying this whole time about adults applies to children too.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be an asshole to your child.
Yeah. They know more than they can say. Give them a break, or more than they can sign.
Yes.
Like,
although
they're doing so much.
I think they can sign a lot better than they can speak.
Yes. That's why a lot of parents are doing like the baby sign stuff.
Right. Because it lets them say things before they're able to produce them with their mouth.
Yep, exactly.
But they still have developmental stages, just like the signing.
Yes, exactly.
The same developmental stages. It's just that their motor skills are. Their motor skills are develop faster for their hands than for their mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like way more things going on in our mouth.
Yeah, I read somewhere that signing babies will start overextending, like at 2 or 3, which is way earlier than speaking babies. So
interesting. Overextending in like the grammatical sense?
Yep. So they'll start overextending like ed, like
the equivalent of ed,
the equivalent of like an ed past tense. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about the past tense in ASL or any sign language. So
no, me neither.
Cool.
And then one more thing that I feel like might be a question from parents is like, does baby talk work?
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes called motherese or parentese, or in the literature, it's like child-directed speech. It's important to like distinguish child-directed speech from like when you say like cutesy wootsy or like all these like word, like that's not child-directed speech. It's more like when you have this like kind of sing-song kind of, you maybe speak a little bit slower and you hyper articulate is more what child-directed speech is. Some of us do it with our dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's also pet-directed speech, which is very closely related.
Yes. And you're not hurting your kid. If anything, I mean, jury's still out, of course, because it's science. But it's probably like a net positive, because when you hyper articulate or maybe like go a little bit slower, you're making it easier for them to pick out patterns. Just imagine like if you were learning a second language, which we probably all have tried to do, it's really hard to break up the speech stream. We're like, where is one word start and the other one, end, and all this. So if you're a kid, you're doing the exact same thing. So if your parent is kind of hyper articulating or like saying something slower, then you like can pick up where the word boundaries are.
Right.
If anything, you're helping.
And at worst, you're doing nothing.
At
like
worst,
it's making no difference
nothing.
at all. So that's fine. If you want to do it, absolutely go nuts. Because you're not harming your child.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's like the big things. It's I think the message is that kids are fucking cool. Like what they're doing is just amazing. It's spectacular. We all have done it. We were amazing once too. Now we're just shits.
Yeah, like I'm a little bit jealous of kids of linguists in that they can see, as long as their parents are actually taking notes, they can see their own development. Like it'd be fun to see the stages that I went through. Like did I do this particular extension or did I do that one? Well, like I don't know, because my parents weren't linguists and they didn't.
Right.
There might be one or two examples that they could come up with on the top of their head. I'm not sure, but
well, here's the thing that I did quickly. So my grandma's name was Opal, and her partner or whatever, my closest thing I had to a grandfather, he would call her Opal, and no one else I knew called her Opal. Obviously, I called her Grandma. My mom called her Mom. My dad called her Pauline, which was her middle name. And for whatever reason, because my grandfather called her Opal, I, as a child, thought that his name was Opal.
Ah, yeah, okay.
So until he died, I called him Opal. And obviously, I was the only person in the world that called him that, because that was not his name.
Right. That's definitely not his name, but that's kind of sweet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did one of those things. I did like an under extension. I don't know what I did.
Well, I think it's like a switching of the reference or something. So I think some kids do it with pronouns too, where they'll mix up I and you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because everything is like directed at them as you, so they think that their name is you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or they get confused when they hear other people call their mom or dad by the, like Jose or Sally or whatever, they're like, what? That's not the label for that person.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, they're working through so many they're problem solving so many things. So
yes, there's a lot going on.
It's no wonder that they're doing these things.
And their brain is still growing.
Their brain is still growing.
It's amazing. If you stop and think about what kids have to do between ages, even just 0 and 6, they learn a lot, like almost all of what they need to know in those years. Yeah. There's so much going on that they have to learn. And their brain is growing. Mm-hmm. and most people don't even like stop to think about how amazing that is.
It's true. And
their mistakes, A, aren't really mistakes, and B, are gonna go away over time. So
yeah.
Cool your jets.
Exactly.
Parents.
Cool your jets. Yeah. Yup. And teach your kids 2 languages if mom and dad or caretaker have,
bare minimum, whatever languages you speak, you better teach your child them. And then, if you only have one, find someone.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe you're lucky enough to be around a dual language school or something. I don't know. Or a preschool that has lots of languages. But
yeah,
we are underusing our brains.
Yes. And your kid will be happy for it when they're older. They really will.
Yeah. And think about the way we talk about other people's kids learning language, too. It's very...
Yes. Definitely all children learning language are cool, doing cool things. Just let them do their cool things. Learning.
Yeah.
Stop judging.
Yes, don't be assholes.
Exactly.
I've heard before. Heard that somewhere.
I wonder where we heard that before. And just to remind people, we thanked our patrons at the beginning, but we have on Patreon bonus episodes, and they're more like this one because it's just the 2 of us. They're shorter, but if you're interested in that, you can support us at the $5 level, and if you also get a sticker, and if you just want a sticker and a shout out on the show, then there's a $3 level. And if you just want a thank you, you can support us at 1.
Yes, and
awesome too.
The bonus episodes are real salty. They're usually just nerd raging.
They are a lot of nerd rage, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy nerd raging.
It's usually pop related to pop culture.
Yeah, or something going on in the larger
world.
sphere.
Yeah.
Sometimes politics.
Yeah. Oh, but Carrie, we should stop being so political.
Well, we're not partisan.
No.
We're just political because everything's political, and I mean, what's not political? Kittens?
I dare you to tell me. Yeah,
even kittens are at a certain level.
I mean, yeah.
If you're a bird person, kittens are definitely political. So I'm just like, stop saying don't be political. You can say don't be partisan because that is fine.
Yeah, sure.
But everything's political. So
yeah, especially that cat that has that like Hitler mustache.
The Kittlers, they're so cute.
No,
but also
they don't.
Awful.
They don't want it. They didn't ask for it.
So yeah. So thanks for listening, and
don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole, especially to your children.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by me, Carrie Gillen, for Halftone Audio. Theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vocal Fries Pod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com, and our website is vocalfriespod.com.